You're watching CNBC. I'm Zanella Morrison, and welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Africa Travel Indaba, coming to you live in Durban. We have an amazing panel lined up that's going to give you the breadth and the depth of the Travel Indaba and all who have attended it this year. But I'm also joined this morning first by Mr. Lihle Pewa, Executive Director, Economic Development and Planning for the eThekwini Municipality. And the topic and the theme for this year's event is the evolution of Durban, the pulse of unlimited Africa. You'll hear today that Durban is open. It's open for tourism, it's open for business, it's open for investments, and it's open to the globe. Joining me today, Mr. Lihle Pewa, for our morning address.
Thank you. Good morning to you, Zanele, and thanks for having us. And also good morning to all your CNBC viewers across the continent. We are here to confirm that Durban is indeed an evolving tourism destination, and that evolution is anchored on a very clear visitor marketing strategy that the city has developed. And through that strategy, across its three pillars, we have set ourselves, a number of targets, for us to be able to increase, our, international, visitors, to about 346,000, by 2026. We've also set ourselves a very clear target, to be able to, increase our, domestic visitors to about 3.1 million by 2026. So against that backdrop, we are a city that is hard at work. We are investing a lot in a number of initiatives to make sure that we are able to get there, working with our partners. Looking back, you'll be pleased to know that the Business Consumer Index, as at quarter one of 2025, is still sitting at above 50, index points, which points to, the business confidence, that is, in the city. We've also, based on the South African tourism, stats, been able to record, a positive growth. Both at for domestic as well as international visitors, so that augurs well, for our vision, to continue, to evolve, in this space. So, what are some of these efforts, that are seeking to ensure that we galvanize, the city in this space? We have been working on a flagship regeneration program, and through that program, we are seeking to make sure that the city is cleaner, the city is safer, and the city continues to attract investment on an ongoing basis. So through that initiative, we are attending to dilapidated buildings in the city, so that we're able to improve our image, and we have a very simple approach, as far as that is concerned. Working with building owners to make sure that we give them incentives to do something about their buildings, and secondly, to make sure that we obviously tap into our legislative framework, in as far as our bylaws is concerned, to ensure that there's enforcement, that happens, for people to take care of these spaces, and thirdly, just making sure that we create necessary awareness for the citizenry in general, to be aware that for city to thrive, it requires everyone's efforts and everyone's hands on the deck. So that is what we've been doing in as far as attending to dilapidated buildings is concerned. And secondly, we are facilitating a number of investments, as part of that flagship regeneration program, in the inner city. We are reimagining, some of the tourism, spaces and zones and precincts, in the inner city. Over the next 10 to 15 years, we're seeking to facilitate investment of over 62 billion, that is aimed at improving those spaces in line with our vision of making sure that we make our inner city a walkable, livable, and a tourist-friendly inner city. Apart from that, we are also, in partnership, with the private sector, driving investment, in a number of catalytic projects, in the city that are seeking to improve, our, infrastructure. In the Western region, for an example, we've just opened in March, a flagship project in the form of, the West Town, development. You'll be hearing about that later, during this session. And there are a number of other, catalytic, investments that we are facilitating, so that we're able to create, the much needed, jobs, and also making sure that the infrastructure is improved. Part of that partnership, we also working with the industry, partners, to make sure that we're able to market, this city, as the premier, festival and events destination. There's a number of events, that are being hosted in the city. Just now, we're in the middle of Africa Travel Indaba, which has been growing, over the years. I mean, if you go back to 2022, we had attendees of around about just over 5,000, and in 2025, attendance and participation here is projected at above 9,600 attendees. So that's a very clear sign that this event has been growing, being hosted here and in Durban, and obviously that has been as a result of all the partners in the city, investing effort, investing ideas, in making sure that we continue to excel. Around the corner, we will be hosting a global event in Resurgence, investment conference, which will be followed by our traditional Vodacom Durban July. All these are part of our MICE strategy, which is anchored on our world-class infrastructure in the form of the Durban ICC, where we are, and also exploiting our connectivity, in as far as air travel is concerned. So all these efforts are part of our ongoing evolution. We'll also be hearing later about some of our products, like the Moses Mabhida Stadium, which continues to evolve as a leisure hub, just to make sure that we're able to diversify our offering to our visitors, and to enrich their experience. We're also working with community tourism organizations to promote the destination. You'll be happy to know that the city is hosting about 9 CTOs as part of this Africa Travel Indaba, who are here in our stand, and they're doing a commendable job in making sure that we enrich our visitor experience on an annual basis going forward. So I'd like to invite everyone in the industry to visit Durban, to experience our culture, to experience our culinary offering, and many other products that are in the city and the surrounds. And indeed, Durban is open for investment. Thank you very much.
Durban is open for business, it's open for investments, it's open for you to engage and understand the value proposition on offer. It's been a year since 2024. I was here last year, here again this year, and it only keeps getting better, clearly articulating what Durban has to offer and also what the Travel Indaba has meant for travel and tourism for South Africa and how it's brought the rest of the continent together to expand on a beautifully integrated narrative of who we are as a continent. So some of my guests today have been with us in 2025, and we have some that are new. I'll allow them to tell a little bit about where they're from and also the role that they play in making Durban what it is for the tourist. Starting off with Indaba from Shaga Marine. Indaba, Shaga Marine, an iconic venue. You don't come to Durban and not go to Shaga Marine. So what for you is the value proposition that Shaga Marine still represents for Durban?
I think, well, let me greet first to your viewers and thank you for the opportunity. Shaga Marine is the #1 attraction for people that are coming to Durban, for them to get to experience what is out there at sea. Because most people are exposed to the land safari, but they're never really exposed to the sea safari as to what's actually out there. So we give them an opportunity to do that, and it's one of only 2 aquariums in South Africa. So that's basically what we offer.
Besides the fact that it's the best place to take children.
Well, it's a family destination.
Absolutely.
Yes. So that's basically the best place for people with children to go and visit whenever they come to Durban.
Well, that was going to be interesting to really look at what the model of Shaga has been and how we're going to continue to expand it. Carlos, welcome to 2025. The year's gone by fast. Have you made strides?
Yes, thank goodness the last year's gone by. We managed to open in March, West Town. We're very proud of that. I think it's been a 9-year journey with the city. But we're now looking to the next phase of it, and that's to focus again on what we want to do. We've completed the barn, which is a craft market, and a food market, which is a nice tourism hub. We're currently at the moment focusing on our sports tourism. We're very involved with sports and bringing sports to the Outer West in the form of polo, show jumping, cycle trails, running. And we're looking forward to opening our amphitheatre in the next month, which will be hosting a lot of live events and music events. So we're bringing something different to the city, and hopefully people will enjoy what we've now launched in West Town.
Sure. We look forward to, again, looking at the economic impact and what that's meant for the development of Durban. So, it's a great conversation that we're going to go into. Dr. Vusima Zibugo, looking at community and emergency services. Big challenge for you to keep up with the growth of Durban. Some of your thoughts on what it is that you're needing to land for people watching.
I think for Durban, particularly for this Indaba, as it has been indicated that it is growing. So what is important is for the fact that the communities of this city have embraced it. When you have an event as continental and as big as it is, and the people on the ground are not embracing it and are not part of it, then it's not worth having it. And we're happy that people have embraced it and they are part of it, and is extending beyond the borders and the confines of the ICC, but to the communities of our city.
And I love the concept of the tourism is for the people. Therefore, they have to participate to a large degree, and it should benefit the community. But you also have businesses, and this is where you come in, Bunny, as part of SATSA, to look at how do we now do partnerships that enable things to take place. What's been your focus in the last year?
I think it's greater collaboration and more networking and offering the consumer these hidden gems in the packages. And I think what West Town is now offering is absolutely exciting because it caters to the family, the business person, and these kind of packaging and experiences are what is required for our industry to tick. There's been so many new entrants in the industry that have come in with creative, innovative ideas. You know, they're technologically savvy. You have the younger, energetic people coming in. So this is what makes the sector so exciting and interesting.
And keeps you going. I mean, I think there's so much energy. Nobody wants to get off this bus. And Brett, you bring in also a big view on public-private partnerships as well. How have they had to evolve to fit with the pace of growth?
So the main side is trying to work with the city to re-establish ourselves as a viable tourism destination again. We've had quite a bad run in terms of over the last 4 years with the violence we had and then the flooding, and to try and change public perception about Durban. So we've been working quite closely with the Durban Metro Police, with the Tourism and Beach Department, and trying to get crime and grime is the main thing. So to present a favourable image of the city to the travelling public, and we've succeeding in that. We had the December season now. Not one tourism reported crime over December. I don't think there's many cities worldwide that could report on that. That's an amazing accomplishment, and that has come by with the collaboration between the public and the private sector. We're working very closely in terms of trying to regenerate the inner city, working with trying to see what we can do with public works, trying to reimagine what we can do with abandoned buildings, hijacked buildings, to try and turn them around and make them usable, presentable. So those are just some of the small items that we're busy with at the moment.
I don't think those are small items. They're quite, it's quite a challenging task because safety is one of the key things. Do we measure? Do we have a measurement of sorts that tells us how tourists are thinking about Durban, and when it comes to destinations, how are they making their decision whether to come to Durban versus any other coastal town?
So the metric we're working on in the tourism industry is your occupancy and your room rates. We definitely economics is the big problem right now. We're seeing quite a depressed domestic market, but that's nationally, that's not a provincial thing alone. So what we're trying to do is we measure against those metrics. We have seen the last 2 years, we have seen an increase in occupancies, we've seen an increase in revenues per night, and the next step for us is we're working very closely with both the provincial and then Durban tourism to try and boost our marketing. So anything we can do. It's a depressed market. Like any business, we need to go forward and we need to market well now, and that's the next goal. We're sorting out the crime side. We now need to sort out the marketing side to push numbers.
But you also have an opportunity, and Dr. Visi, I saw you speak earlier on about Moses Mabhida and ideas around taking what you have and amplifying the offering. What are some of your thinking on how to do that?
Moses Mabhida is the single most expensive real estate that the city has as a legacy of 2010. But what is important is how we take it forward as an iconic asset of the city and making it a center of attraction for tourists, for people to come in and enjoy. I mean, this Indaba is happening at the back of a fantastic final that was hosted at that stadium, with everything that was said about Durban, about it going to be disrupted and everything else. But people were reminded about 2010 that they actually enjoyed. And people were in the beachfront with public viewing areas, and the stadium was packed, and the hotels were packed, and the tourists. And some people actually came for that game and they stayed for Indaba. And as we always say, that there is no single event that will actually make a huge impact. You need back-to-back events for the city to generate income, for the businesses that are seated here to actually benefit, including the small businesses that benefit out of this. We are now building towards comrades, and we are already starting to see people benefiting at the back of Indaba. After that, we're going to have Durban July, and people are also working towards benefiting out of that. So it is important that we sustain back-to-back kind of events for the city.
And that game was iconic. I mean, it broke a 9-year streak between Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs. So you have 50% of people very happy, 50% were literally in tears on the day.
Depends where you stand.
Depends where you stand. You can swap sides now.
Exactly.
Or you can come back if you gave up. Carlos, when we last spoke last year, it was about that middle class as well in Durban that needs to be able to have a lifestyle in Durban. Tourism is one thing, but you want to make sure that it feeds into job creation and sustainability of the community. Are you seeing the numbers improve and occupancy of your projects and demand for your projects?
From a retail side, yes, and I've got to just go back to what Brett was saying earlier. I think we're in a very depressed economy at the moment. But like the doctor said, the more the events are held in Durban, the more we all benefit. I mean, West Town was packed to the rafters on Saturday, and that became a new offering for tourists who had come from Johannesburg and never seen West Town, and they came to watch the football there. Some were laughing, as you're saying, some were celebrating, others were crying, but it was a great day. So from our side as West Town, we're very, very much focused on the event side of things, with our amphitheatre, with live events in the town square, again harnessing what Durban tourism is doing with the July, with the comrades, and the more people we can bring to this beautiful city of ours, I think the more everybody will benefit. So we're very much on board with the city on this.
Always. You know, when everybody comes to Durban, you pop off to Shaka Marine, you don't have an option. How do you keep the quality of the establishment? Because year in and year out when I've come, the standard is the same. You know, it's not losing its beauty, its cleanliness, its efficiency. What does it take? Because that needs to be duplicated across all other entities that we have that are iconic for the country.
I think there's a few things that we've done. Obviously, we've got a multi-year maintenance plan that we've put in place, strictly, a very strict regime, which we monitor on a monthly basis, you know, so it's like tick, 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 you know, so basically if it's not done, there's a cross. So we know exactly what hasn't been done. And also there's a very clear program for cleaning in terms of what people need to do on a daily basis and supervision, because it takes discipline and very strict application. People have got very clear work instructions as to what they're supposed to do, and we're very obsessed with security and safety. I think it's something that we look at very carefully because we know exactly what happens. I think what we've also seen, just going back to the state of the economy, you know, when we came out of COVID, we were expecting a very rapid recovery. But what we are seeing is a very slow but sustained recovery. So we're growing at about 3% every year to our pre-COVID numbers. I think we were averaging about 840,000 people into the park. We about 95% of that, but the yield is improving because what we've done now, we have implemented a dynamic pricing. You know, where in winter, where the market is depressed, we reduce the price, we find the locals flock in, but during the peak season, you know, we adjust the price so that on average, we still achieve more or less the same thing. And it pushes our numbers up. It gives the local also an opportunity to experience what we actually about. And also what we've done, we've dissected some of what we actually offer, and we've perfected some of our messages, because one of the biggest problems that we're facing is that people tend to say, I used to go to Shaka Marine when my kids were young, now they're old, and you know. So basically we've had this unfortunate definition of being this place where you go to when you've got kids. As soon as your kids have grown up, you don't have to go there. So we've now redefining our brand, trying to sharpen our message to say, well, it's a product for everyone. So we're really very excited, and obviously we're looking forward to the next 10 years of that place, yeah.
And the addition of additional elements. I mean, when I go, you've now got different exhibitions, you know, on various animals and various. So it starts to say it's also becoming an educational platform even before you get into the part that includes the water and the slides. So evolution is going to be very important. But then, and I think, Bunny, the question is to you, the integration of the social impact, the social businesses. How do you see everybody playing a part in finding their piece within this broader, you know, tourism landscape?
I think this is where SATSA comes in very strongly into the tourism space, is the offerings that Indaba just spoke about during the low seasons, like the winter season, that encourages a lot more of our members to introduce innovative, exciting, budget-friendly packages that are very receptive to the very different markets. And especially if you're looking at the Gauteng market that really come down to Durban during the winter season. So those kind of offerings packaged together with what West Town has to offer and the other hidden gems would entice people to come through with their families and extended families and extend their holidays. So this becomes a win-win situation for everybody. Ultimately, the services are still very well class, and compliance levels are all taken care of. So the client enjoys the experience so much that Durban becomes a must-do yearly pilgrimage for fun.
But, you know, I was quite surprised how we're still striving, though, to make it easy for people to do business in Durban, or to open up associations. I mean, as South Africa as a whole, you know, when President Cyril Ramaphosa started his presidency, it was one of the first things that he wanted to sort. But somehow we're still needing to work on it. What do you think we need to do to make it easier for businesses to operate at the right level, so that it expands the market faster? We don't have that as a hindrance.
So from FedHaas's side, our main push is against regulation. We've been piling on regulation for business over the last few years to an extraordinary level. And a lot of that is hindering the creation and development of new businesses. And especially in the tourism sector, we are the one sector that not only creates huge jobs for the capital amount invested, but also the entry capital needed is probably one of the lowest in any of the industries. And so we've been working, trying to get government to make compliance easy. We need stuff digitized. We need stuff that a new business owner, existing business owner can easily get into. They can get onto these platforms and they can comply. We're not saying people shouldn't comply. We're just saying that government needs to make compliance easy. And that is a huge drawback at the moment for expansion. And that is what we need. If you look at the unemployment figures that are coming through now recently, they're huge. They've just released new ones 2 days ago. Tourism should be on the forefront of reducing that number. You can literally enter the tourism industry by weaving a basket, making, like as Bunny's got on, beautiful beaded work. That takes the capital amount to get into that is minuscule. There's not many industries that offer as few barriers to entry as tourism does. And we need to make sure that from conception through implementation of these businesses, that government works with the private sector, making compliance as easy and seamless as possible. That is probably the number one thing we need right now in this country in terms of growth.
So we may not be moving fast enough in the digitization and ease of access to the information that's required to participate. And that's what we're talking about when we're saying we need to unlock ease of doing business. But also yesterday in some of the conversations I had, it was around the education and training of people who could operate in this space. And I'm not sure who can take that question. But I had thought we're quite agile. I thought the schools were all offering hospitality training, but it seems as if there's still room for more development work to be done. So people are equipped and they're not trained first time when they get a job to work in an exhibition like this.
Yeah, so I was on that panel yesterday, actually discussing this exact thing and we do unfortunately have a disconnect between the training and what industry is requiring. It's a difficult one because a lot of it is that everybody's operating in silos, and we're trying to as industry, we've been pushing hard with CATHETA and various training organizations, is that we need more collaboration, again, comes back to collaboration, between the actual industry, what we need to be actual employ people, and what the training organizations are putting out. But you just the other one is, again, economic growth. It comes back to that. We have all of these training organizations training wonderful students. They're coming out into the industry and they're battling to get jobs. Why? Because we're not seeing economic growth. The country sitting at sub 1% growth at the moment means we are probably only creating in the region of about 50 to 70,000 new jobs a year in this entire country. Tourism, 8% approximately of that, which means, and then about 5,000 to 6,000 jobs in tourism, and maybe 25% those actually need a skill. The rest are unskilled labor and cleaning and the rest, which means you're only probably around about 1,000 actual skilled jobs that you need in the tourism industry at the year, currently per year. It's pathetic. We cannot carry on as a country needing those kind of numbers. We need to look, let's look, what are we doing in terms of international arrivals? We're still 18% down in 2019. 2019 wasn't our best year in terms of international arrivals. You have to understand, if you look at Thailand, Phuket Island alone gets approximately, I think last time I looked, it was about 3 to 4 times the number of international arrivals just on that little island in South Africa gets per year. Our tourism potential is massive. We need to double down as a country in terms of marketing, and that's why we've been having big discussion with Durban Tourism, the KwaZulu-Natal Film and Tourism Authority. We need to look at marketing. We need to get those numbers up, and desperately.
But you know what else we need to look at is the ease of arriving and being a tourist. You know, the countries you speak about, Phuket, you literally can arrive at the airport, get into any taxi, reasonably priced. They're already geared to take you to wherever you want to go to. There's brochures galore. There's such a freedom of movement. And I think that we're still building barriers. You know, you still have to find that the Uber is on that floor and on that floor, and you know, it's hard to navigate. It's not as easy as I've arrived. The station is right there. It's open. There's somebody greeting me. There's just this ease of access. When you go to the tourist destination, there are so many people employed to help you map your journey of all the sites you can go see. How do we loosen the reins, and how do we allow, and I love the idea that it's low entry. How does a person from, how does Shaka Marine have the freedom to operate at the airport without the huge cost of the airport in order to take people through not only the Shaka experience, you know, but to weave it in? Is there some conversations that need to take place to free up our own thinking around how to host tourists effectively?
I think there is. You'll remember that through the president, there are work streams that have been established to look at this, and one of those is specifically looking at this specific subject of tourism and how do we loosen some of the constraints that might be there, and how do we mobilize the industry to actually come together and create products and engage government. I think for government, what is important is to create an enabling environment for tourism, for the destination to strive. And I think we're beginning to see that. I mean, the fact that the issue around safety and security is key, because any tourist must feel that if I go to a particular destination, I'm going to be protected, I'm going to be safe, I'm going to come back alive. And this destination is doing that, because for everybody that has visited us and will go back home safe. I think that is important for tourists. But obviously, the issue about, we are talking about job creation and education, those are key to make sure that every opportunity and potential that is there is realized. It's not just there, but it's also realized. I think the coming together of the government and the industry and the sector together has started to yield some results that were beginning to benefit. But the evolution that needs to happen and the potential that that is there, I don't think we've realized it at this point. There's a huge potential for this country, and particularly for this destination, Durban.
Yeah, and reminded an infusion of young people, an infusion of young minds, different ways of thinking. Indaba.
Yeah, I think for me, there's Brett's talking about the size of the market. One of the biggest problems that we've got is that we obviously, if you look at international tourism, we're playing at the niche level, because the examples that we're making, we refer to it as mid-market. Now, if you look at where we're playing, the people that we're trying to bring to South Africa, there's like the high end. There's a guy mostly, they fly business class and they stay 5-star. So basically, your smaller guy hardly has an opportunity, because at some stage, we were looking at a mid-market strategy, because that's where you start getting numbers. Because sometimes what the industry does, they chase the yield as opposed to the numbers. But the problem is that what comes with the yield is that there's very few beneficiaries. So where Phukets and all that they play at our domestic equivalent side of the market over that side. And until we find the trade that is prepared to go and play in the mid-market there, we always going to have these very small numbers coming through, because everyone says there's not enough money out of it. So we tried, I think, 2017, find the right people. And I think for me, the solution, particularly for Durban, if you look at your Durban infrastructure, it's not geared towards the current market target in the UK, because then that's targeted on your 5-star hotel. I mean, you only have 3 5-star hotels here. So already it cuts you out. You can't play. It means that you must find new people who's going to work with you overseas and start bringing the kind of tourists that is geared for the market that you've got. Because you start then having people say, Durban is not ready for the market, Durban is this, but you're bringing the wrong people. So that's the issue.
Good point. And now, Carlos, I'm going to stretch you as well and say the very same market that we should probably be operating within can open up more businesses. And so we're talking about SMEs now. What is the shift that's required so that we can have more small businesses thriving, because ultimately they contribute to GDP far more because they employ more people. What's your view on the SME development opportunity in Durban?
In Durban in general, I'm not an expert to talk on that. I can only talk about what we're doing in the Outer West. And in the Outer West, it's a key priority for us to bring these small businesses through. The creation of the bond concept, which is the only, I think, one or very few operate 7 days a week, where you got these craft makers and small food businesses who are now in these kiosks, starting from a small business and hopefully then building themselves up into the next step, which is to take premises and then eventually start running your own restaurant. I think training is a key element, and Brett was referring to that. We have some of the best restaurants in Durban that have opened at West Town, and they are battling, if you speak to them, about having the skills base of getting good people to work in that industry. So as much as we want to employ from a low level, there's nothing available to train these people in the industry. And I'm using an example at West Town, what has happened. We've got hotels who are looking to come to West Town. And they raise the same thing as well. Is they always got to try and move staff around instead of having a pool that you can go to and say, look, I need so much management, a F&B manager, or I need a waiter and a waitress. So from us, we're encouraging that through our bond concept, where these small traders start, but it's just very small compared to what the real challenge is that we have currently with unemployment. Right now, West Town's just created just short of 1,000 jobs in March. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it's 1,000 more when you hear the figures that Brett referred to earlier that just came out 2 days ago. So we're proud of those initiatives.
Yeah. And West Town was an eye-opener for me. I drove past yesterday and I couldn't believe what it was today versus what it was a couple of years ago, and what a pride and icon.
Yeah, and I think credit must go to the city on this, because without the city support, and we mentioned just now infrastructure, without that infrastructure that enables investors like ours, where the city put a huge amount, 600 million rand into infrastructure, has enabled 4 billion rand of investment already lined up to come into West Town. And that kind of investment is huge for the city as well.
Yeah.
because it creates these rates bases, utilities get sold there, water, electricity. So for us as West Town, we're creating a new node. And because there's been a lot of development, obviously in the south and in the north and in the CBD, in the outer west, I think it's been neglected a little bit. And we see ourselves as being positioned as the entrance into Durban. And when these tourists arrive here, like you say, when you drive past, you say, wow, it's now up. Well, it's going to take us another 15, 20 years to develop the whole city, over time, the 9 precincts.
Yeah. But it goes down to what Brett was saying, it's marketing, it's marketing. How did I find out about West Town? I had to ask the lady working at the hotel, where could I go to get a specific product? And I'd asked how many people before she told me about West Town. And where did I find it? On TikTok. I should have known about West Town before I came. I wish next time I'll know about West Town before I come. But let's wrap it up quickly. Bunny, I'll let you wrap up maybe with some final thoughts.
I think this Indaba has been most exciting because when we walked in on Monday morning, the energy, the passion, the new entrants that were coming in, they were hopeful, and just their experience on the floor has been exciting. So these are the nuts and bolts of the industry. These are the people that convince the partners to bring their clients here, and they are so committed and so passionate about it. So I'm very sure that we're going to see a good ROI on this event.
And it's continuous hosting.
Absolutely.
Brett, any closing remarks on your side? I've got a little bit more time.
No, I must carry on with what Bunny's base is saying, is that Indaba is essential for not only Durban, but for KZN, as a showcase of what the province and the city has to offer. And if I compare it to other tourism shows, it is the largest we've got. It's the largest in Africa, it's the largest in Southern Africa, and the number of foreigners that are coming in to be exposed to what product we've got is amazing. And we need to grow on this further. And that's the nice thing about Indaba, is that Durban has the capacity to grow it. Not many other places do. And to carry on back on to, we need to get the mid-market back into South Africa. The mid-market is the bread and butter of not only Durban, but KZN. It has always been. It's what we're known for, and we need to get it back.
Dr. Vusi, final thoughts on your side. Thank you, Brett.
I think it has been exciting. This Indaba was exciting, and I think it is a demonstration that Durban is growing as a destination, that we are ready for people to invest in this city, that we are as a city investing in our own infrastructure to make sure that we create an enabling environment for the industry and for the visitors and tourists to come to our city, but more importantly for the partners that we work with to actually see the value and get the value of what we are doing, which will then enable people to come in and the industry to actually grow, but more importantly to continue to host successful big events. And we're looking for opportunities for those that want to invest and have their events here in Durban, and we are ready to host them.
And tried and trusted, proven, amazingly organized every year. Carlos, final thoughts?
We're offering something different to tourists who want to come to Durban, and we new. So we'd love people to come and see what we're doing in West Town. It's a long-term vision project with the city behind us. And our focus is going to be on doing events, major events throughout the year, and partnering with Durban Tourism on events like the July, like the Comrades. And we're bringing other sporting events. I think sports tourism is a huge industry that we should be exploiting more as a city. And we are looking at that with equestrian, because that area where we are in is very horsey. So we've got the equestrian events, the polo events, polo cross that took place last year. We got all the cycling events, running events, and we're even looking now to do a massive paddle tournament that will bring people from all over South Africa to the first massive paddle tournament in Durban. And I think that borders well is, I think, what we're offering at the moment. to help the city with its tourism strategy.
And how do we expand further? We've got soccer as well as a major contributor. What other sports are potential for Durban? Which other sports can come into Durban?
From a sporting point of view, I think obviously you've got your what you know as a big three, your football, rugby, and cricket. But as a city, we are looking at as we currently doing, we're renovating our Kings Park swimming pool because we want to get the aquatics back to Durban. And we also, within the sporting precinct that we have at Mosmabida, looking at Kings Park Athletic Stadium because we want athletics back. Durban was the home of athletics, not only from producing good athletes, but also from a participation events point of view. So we're looking at that precinct to the precinct for big events, and we are investing in those facilities to make sure that those sports are back. But we're also looking at basketball, which is a sleeping giant, and we haven't done much about it. And there are initiatives through our city manager to get basketball as part of a sport that would invest in terms of infrastructure and development in the city.
Fantastic. It's interesting that every year there's a theme and then we move along and now there's a theme for next year. So when I come, we get to look at the outputs and the results of that. I'm loving the work. But Ndaba, your thoughts?
I think we're focusing on the SADC region, I mean, especially the landlocked countries. You know, there's about 90% of those people have never seen the sea, never mind the shark. So we're really focusing on that, and I think it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for Durban in terms of the uniqueness of our offering. And we're looking forward to working with Durban tourism countries like Botswana, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, and all that, because I think those are low-hanging fruits for us.
And there's a value proposition that's really offered not only by KZN, not only by Gauteng, but absolutely our citizen brothers, especially those immediately around us. So it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for bringing us again to the forefront of what is pertinent for the growth and the development of Durban, as well as KZN and all areas around it. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for watching. You have been tuned in and streaming to us live in KZN for, as Brett said, one of the biggest travel Indabas and one of the biggest Indabas we're hosting in South Africa. So thank you for 2025. That's it from me, Zanele Morrison. I'll catch you again here, same place, same time probably in 2026.